Hey, this is Ben. I am the one and only developer in Curly Tail Games. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about imposter syndrome. It's something that I feel like a lot of creatives and a lot of developers go through. You go to college or you go to school, and you don't feel like, at least I didn't feel like the real thing. Like I felt like I was a faker. Like everyone else knew what they were doing, um, but I was the only one that was just kind of like struggling through things, trying to figure out, okay, what does this even mean? Like, how does this work? But you know what? This is something that everyone goes through, and you shouldn't feel bad about it. Um, when when I graduated college, I was applying for jobs and I wasn't hearing anything back for months and months. And I kept updating my portfolio and I kept tweaking my resume and just kept looking. And eventually, I got an interview at the Boston Museum of Science for an interactive and game developer position, which was super cool, right up my alley. I've been making video games since I've been like 6 or 7 years old, and my mom created the Maine State Aquarium, so museums and games just felt like a perfect fit for me. Um, so I applied, I interviewed, I managed to convince the hiring manager that I was the perfect candidate for the job, and I feel like my portfolio was pretty solid, and so I started working in the job, and at first like no one really expected that much of you, and I think that's pretty normal. Like you start a job, no one really like expects you to really contribute until you've had a little time under your belt and see how things are done, which is a whole topic on its own. Just kind of like starting a job and getting a feel for the land. But I think like the biggest thing that affected me was like I was working with another developer and I was trying to program something and I was having trouble, and I was explaining the problem and he was just like, well, why don't you just create a class for that? And looking back now, it's like, oh yeah, I should have just created a class for that. But at the time, like I barely knew how to program. I wouldn't say I lied, but like I definitely stretched the truth. Like I had really only started learning how to program in Unity maybe a month or two before applying for the job. I majored in computer animation, and I went to art school. So like I did not have that strong of a programming background, and it was just something that I was kind of interested in. Um, so like I felt like when my coworker said that, I just felt like, oh, like they're gonna find out I'm not an actual developer. Like they hired the wrong guy. Um, I don't know what I'm doing. You know, why didn't I know? You know, why didn't I know to just create a class for that data object? I should have known that. Um, but I didn't. I was still learning. Um, so it just felt like I wasn't qualified for the position, um, even though like I had been doing the work. I was getting things done. I was figuring things out on the fly, and I if I didn't know something, I would Google it, I would research, I'd look through forums, Unity answers. I'd look up YouTube videos. I would just try and figure it out. If there is a problem, I know someone else has already solved this. Let me see if I can find an expert, someone else who knows exactly the same sort of problem, and how did they solve it. And once I found someone like that, um, I would look at their work. I would, copy and paste a lot of things off of Stack Overflow, to be honest. And I would just hack my way through it. My code was not pretty. I had the benefit of like, I was working in a small team and everyone kind of had their own little projects. So, I could get away with having spaghetti code and no one was going to know about it. But honestly, like looking back, I kind of wish I had someone to mentor me and someone to look through my code and tell me, point out the things I was doing wrong, because, I had really terrible code for a long time. And, if I had just asked for help, or if I had someone who I could go to who could explain, why things were set up a certain way, then that would have been amazing. So, I think another big thing that people need to focus on when they feel like they're an imposter is, asking for help and clarification on, what is being asked of them. Someone could say, "Oh yeah, give me a report on XYZ by tomorrow," and if you don't know what they actually want, then like, how can you deliver them what they're asking for? So having that clarity of what is the goal, what are the objectives, what is someone supposed to walk away with after they've used your interactive or game. Having that clarification is really important. Otherwise, it's hard to know how successful you were. So that's a big thing, is having clear goals that yes, I accomplished that. And I think the last thing is to stay positive. When you're first starting out, don't beat yourself up. When I first started working, doing programming stuff in Unity, I felt like I was on the verge of being discovered, like not in a good way, in a bad way. I felt like a fake. And I felt like I wasn't rising to what people were expecting. Even when I was getting praise from coworkers of being like, "Oh, this looks amazing. You're doing a great job." Like deep down, I knew like, oh, if you took one look at my code, you would know how terrible a programmer I am and how I shouldn't be here. But I think, and it honestly, it comes with time. Like the more that you do something, the more that you feel like, oh yeah, this is something I can do. And you have to stay positive through that. You have to stay like curious and optimistic, and you have to have that spark of positivity to it. So like, when someone asks you how to do something, or when someone asks you to do something, you can come back with like, oh, like I don't know, but like that's a really interesting question. Let me see if I can figure that out. It's that like that I don't know, but I'm gonna figure out how to do it, and that will get you so far in life. I've been programming interactives for museums for 10 years now. And, most of the things I have no idea how to do, but, I'll figure it out. I'll rise to the occasion. I know that if I just work hard, if I just, research and see how other people have done it, I can figure out a way to do it myself. Like nothing, like, it's just rocket science. That sounds crazy, but there are rocket scientists. Just like there's someone else who's already solved the problem that you've done. So, don't feel like you're alone in it. You can figure it out. There's a solution out there, and your first stab at it might not be the best solution that has ever existed, but you know what? You can do it. And honestly, performance isn't the biggest deal. So even if your code isn't the cleanest code that's ever existed, um, you know, if it's in a museum setting, or if it's an exhibit, or even if it's on a somewhat modern device, chances are, like, whatever hacky solution you have, the computer that you're running it on is going to do fine with it. And you shouldn't try and optimize things to be the best that they can possibly be until you have a problem. And that's another topic. But don't kill yourself trying to come up with the perfect solution. Just try and figure it out. Try and get it done. Ask for help when you need it, and stay positive. So those are the 3 things that I would do to combat feeling like you're an imposter. Try and figure it out, ask for clarification and help, and stay positive. So I hope you guys like this. Hit the bell, subscribe, like the video, all that jazz. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.